We'd go out hunting and fishing for days. If you don't fish the rock, it's not lovely. Yeah, there's still something wrong about having somebody charge a machine gun.
Yeah.
And I was a hell raiser. Our Friday nights get beer and run around finding guys getting fights with. When you get too many bullshitters, then you don't get anything else in.
Thank you guys for coming on.
Absolutely.
We have Harry.
Yes.
And your lovely wife,
Sue.
Sue. I'm terrible with names. I'm
If
sorry.
you don't fish the rock, it's not lovely.
But you were in Vietnam, in which regiment? 5th Infantry?
1st and 5th Mechanized Infantry.
1st and 5th Mechanized Infantry. And you were in college during Vietnam era.
I was in... The earliest that I can remember is being very young, probably around 10. And the nightly news at 11 o'clock, they always had like a run of the events that were going on in Vietnam. And it scared me. That's all I knew about it at that time.
Right.
But when the war was over, the Vietnam War was over in 1975, I still hadn't graduated from high school yet. I graduated in 77.
Okay.
So I'm a little bit younger than Harry. But what I do remember about that period of time was like the students, like a lot of protests happening, like in Ohio State, and those 4 students that were killed.
Yeah.
And so but I also remember not being taught anything about the Vietnam War during that period of time, because it was, up until 75, it was active, it was going on, and we didn't really learn anything about it. But I just knew that those newsreels at the end of the news scared me. So
it was, what was and other than fear, obviously, but what was the kind of feeling you got? Like, were you concerned about the safety of yourself in the States? Were you concerned?
I wasn't concerned about that. I have a brother and a sister. My brother is 6-7 years older than me. He was actually in the lottery. And that was, they don't do that anymore, but they drew by your birth date. Mm-hmm. And his birth date happens to be April 22nd. Mm-hmm. He turned out to be number like 248 out of 365. He was not drafted. And then he went off to college. He's a pharmacist now. But if it would have been as bad as when Harry was drafted, I think they would have taken him regardless, my brother. I wasn't scared about my...
Sole surviving son, I should have pulled her. That's not me.
Yeah.
But I wasn't scared for my health or safety or anything. But the kids that my brother grew up with were all of that draft age. And I knew those people. I grew up in Penn Hills in a very tight-knit community. And some of them had been drafted, and we had already lost some of those young men. So that it was just like a bunch of feelings all together, and not knowing what was going on, and not knowing how much it would affect my life later on. You know? I can look back and say, "Well, look at that."
What was the broken vacuum pump?
It was broken vacuum pump.
She was
I guess it didn't suck.
No, it didn't.
She was distilling ether. And the vacuum pump broke. So the guy said, take it over to his office. I had it on that. And she brought it over, and I was sweating.
And seriously, when he did open the door that day, because I had not met him. I mean, we were both on campus at Duquesne University. He was a grad student. I had just finished my first year of nursing school. He opened the door, and he had on a lab coat with long arms. I didn't even notice that he had one arm. I was just, Dr. Supas says that you can fix this broken vacuum pump. And that was the interaction. I think we had maybe 5-10 minutes.
Well, I started calling around when she had the water plant, and I was in the plant thing with her. Oh, I was smitten.
But it wasn't something, you know what? It wasn't something that he dwelled on, and it was not anything that I noticed at first glance, which may have been bad for a nursing student, but, But yeah,
you're telling me your first year in nursing school, your attention to detail wasn't quite where it needed to be?
No, it was not.
It's that Duquesne University education, I guess.
Yeah. But you know what? That was first year. By the end of the fourth year, I was good.
Okay. You could notice that he didn't have
I would have noticed that by that point. Yeah.
Well, that's improvement then.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So, I mean, it was... And
wasn't that long that you said, let's get married?
Well, it was a couple of years later after that. Yeah. But we were still in school. We were still in school. Yeah. So, but we didn't. We waited till 1987. And I met him in 1978.
So, almost 10 years.
Almost 10 years, yeah. I graduated, started working at Shadyside Hospital right away. Worked my way through to the thoracic ICU, and then that's what I did for 23 years. So
post-open heart,
that's
the worst one. That's the toughest one.
That is a very hard job, I've heard, dealing with some of the people who have rejections and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I don't know enough about it to speak professionally on it, but I'm sure you got your own fair share of, we'll call it PTSD because that's what it really is.
Yeah.
I don't think you really had that.
Well, I think it's...
Everybody handles it different.
I think there are a lot of us nurses that, I think we use humor as a way of coping.
100%.
Could be a very dark humor, but it's humor all the same.
Yeah. I think that's why military and nurses and law enforcement and everything get along so well, is because it's that gallows humor.
You're stuck now.
That gallows humor is what gets you through the issues that you see and face on a daily basis. Like,
we got along well. We never had problems after that.
Yeah.
No problems.
No.
I mean, not anything to do with medicine or anything to do with his time in Vietnam or his time in teaching.
Just standard marital problems.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like, pick your socks up, or something. It was always something goofy. Yeah.
His retort: I can't. I only have one. I can pick one at a time.
Yeah. But I mean, it's
don't tell
that was never. I think we accepted each other the way we were. That's it.
Knew I was divorced. And
Divorced?
Yes, he was married.
And I had 2 kids. And so her mom didn't like me because she was Catholic and all that. And she didn't know at all. Her dad loved me. We had a 34-foot Seaway boat, and I took him out fishing.
That's why he loved you.
Yeah, fishing. The boys went fishing.
But she came around.
My mom? Yeah.
Yeah, she came.
Yeah.
No, your wife.
I came around too.
Long? Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, we were married, regardless.
Yeah. I mean, that's amazing story from yourself there too. I mean, the outcome from your history and your past, and then becoming a nurse and running into this guy in the...
My dad was in the Navy.
Okay.
And he was stationed in Hawaii. He was a cook on a ship.
So he was good with potatoes.
He was good with potatoes. Actually, he was really good at making breakfast. So I suspect that he was a morning cook.
Probably morning shift.
He was in Hawaii. Yes, he was. And he would readily talk about it. It wasn't like he kept anything, like it was okay to be in the Navy, Yeah. But he and my mom pretty much said, you guys, there's 3 of us. You guys are going to do whatever it is that you want to do. But he put that little seed in us. But people will always be sick. So you might want to think about something in medicine. My brother Ed's a pharmacist. My sister Rosemary's a nurse. I'm a nurse. So, yeah.
Seed planted and cultivated.
He did. Mm-hmm. He did. And we all went to Duquesne.
Yeah. We were already married. They didn't even know.
Who's that?
Your mom and dad. Well, your dad did, but your mom did.
Right.
Yeah.
And that came out later. But that turned out fine.
She got really sick. And she came to our house and we had a tub with a whirlpool. And so I wasn't around when they did that, but they put her in the tub and that really helped her.
Yeah.
She came here.
Yes, she did. She did. which was nice because shortly after that she passed away. So, yeah.
Parents and loved ones, it's hard to see them go, but you only got so many miles and so many memories with people.
Right.
And it's a kind of a weird reflection on comparison. But
how old are you?
I'm 30.
Oh. Yeah, I was going to say you're wiser than your years, but 30's. Yes, I guess.
I definitely feel older than 30. I'll tell you that much. But I appreciate that thing.
Wait till you're in your 60s, and somewhere in your head you're still in your 30s.
I can only hope.
Yeah, I'm serious. And then I step back and I'm like, no, I probably shouldn't do that because. It's like even just getting down on the floor. Mm-hmm. It's easy to get down on the floor.
No, getting back up again.
But you have to have a plan to get back up.
Yeah. I'm already at that point.
Oh, gosh. Okay.
Makes me
try it with one hand and shot out legs.
I'm good. I'll pass. Thank you. I'll leave that to you.
Yeah.
You know what? I laid there in that bed. I couldn't even pick my leg up.
Yeah.
She kept doing it and doing it, doing it. Finally, I could pick it up, and then it got stronger. I wanted to go down to the mess hall because they didn't bring us very much food up on the cart.
I mean, there's something to be said about your why being stronger than your how, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I can see that.
Yeah.
I mean, I just recently quit smoking because I promised my kids that I would not do it anymore. So
good for you.
I drove the track. I was the head driver.
Yeah.
And all the stuff came, cigarettes, cartons of cigarettes.
Mm-hmm.
And I smoked some, but I quit when I came back. It just stopped.
It was something to do, I think.
Yeah, well, yeah.
There was very little off time.
When you're in an intense situation.
Well, I mean, it's relaxing. It
Yeah.
literally takes your mind off things. It eases stress and that. So that's why there's an addiction to it. And that's why a lot of stressful situations, stressful jobs, even in healthcare where, you know, they stress on you for being healthy, they still smoke.
They put them in your meals. They put cigarettes in the meals and everything.
Well, they don't do that anymore.
No, they don't. I know.
No, they put energy drinks.
No,
they ought
just
to.
put coffee in.
Oh. So they give you caffeine that way.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, that's one thing that's changed. I mean, I did hear from my uncle. He was in the Air Force during Vietnam. And he's like, yeah, they used to, in your rations, your meal packs, they would give you cigarettes.
Yeah.
Well, I got a huge box. There was beer in there. There was all kinds of stuff.
Man, the good old days.
Yeah.
We had dry bases and we had...
Did you really?
Yeah. Yep. There were bases that you weren't allowed to... I mean, you had to go off post to drink. If you wanted to drink, you had to go to the bar. And you did not come back on drunk driving because the MPs would stop you.
Yeah, we didn't have bars during the war.
No.
But no, yeah, it was some crazy stuff. And there's parallels to be drawn, but there's also drastic differences between even your day and age and the generation that I came in through. The service is different than it was. And every generation
we were
changes.
constantly fighting. When I got there, I came into Cameron Bay. It was 120 some degrees. That felt like needles and pins for a good while. But they took us out, and we were on the end of the runway, Consonant Runway, because they had gotten into all of our... They ignored the telephons. That was a holiday for them, a religious holiday. So both sides took breaks. Well, we sat there like idiots, and they came after us. And they got the upper edge on a lot of places. We regained it, but it took a while.
And it had a cost, too.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
God, yeah.
A human cost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The amount of time and manpower it took to undo the mess that whole situation was.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I study into it a little bit. So.
We ended the telephones. That's when the whole thing really got unfolded.
Yeah.
We were hell on wheels. We really were.
So there's a little thing a lot of people say is that we lost the Vietnam War. That's like the history that we have now. Mm-hmm. Do you feel that we actually lost it, or do you feel that we just quit?
Not my unit. We wiped them out. We had two units went into the rubber with the tracks. Not a lot of room to move in there, and they were hit by way more than they had. And we had to go in. This is a story that's really, really sad. They were so outnumbered that there were no officers left at all. All the radio people were dead. There was one sergeant. He looked around. He said, "All right, get everybody that's alive in the tracks. We always like to take our dead, but there was no way they could do that, or everybody would die."
Right.
And so he waited, and there was off in the periphery where we were fighting. He saw some of our guys still fighting, and we had no radios working that could call them or anything. He grabbed at 16. He started running across, and it was a good piece away. And a bullet caught him in the cheek and took his eye. He kept going. Wow. He landed. They were in a pit, a bomb pit. And he said, "Get the hell out of here. There's no sense in all of us dying." And they ended up getting him out of there. But he got a Medal of Honor. Rex Young was his name.
Rex Young.
But posthumously, he got that Medal of Honor.
Yeah.
Well, did he die in service, or was it
he didn't
posthumous?
No, he made it. He just he got a Medal of Honor.
And he was in your unit. You served with him.
Oh yeah.
But your unit's known for something else too, right?
Huh?
Your unit's known for something else too.
Oh, lots of stuff. Yeah.
What's the story behind that one?
Well, we wiped out. They were totally unarmed. We went in there and we ended up wiping them out. And we lost a lot of people. There's still some people they couldn't find. We only lost one that we couldn't find. But I mean, yeah, we wiped out. They were way big. There's no way we should have been able to beat them, but we did.
Huh?
Yeah, that was a big one. I didn't even get mine till we went on a reunion, and Andy Anderson came up to me and said, "You have a medal, Presidential Unit Citation. You have to get your DD-214 back with all the stuff that we've done." And
so you had to go through the process of requesting a new DD-214?
Oh yeah. Yeah. No, it's on there. Yeah.
Did you have to go through the Army Review Board and everything to get it updated, or do they just do it for you?
No, because he had put such a complete description of what went on and what we did.
Okay.
He was an amazing man. Amazing man. He's passed out since. Yeah, I dearly love that man. He was always out with us on the field.
Good leadership.
The guy before him rode around in the chopper and asked, all he cared about, how many did you kill? How many did you kill? He didn't care about us. He didn't care about anything. Andy Anderson pulled those three guys out of there and put them in the chopper to get them out of there.
Tell that story again. What happened with that one?
His first day on the field, and we were catching hell on the periphery, and he said he wanted to take the chopper out and he wanted to size up what's going on. And the first thing he saw was an RPG hitting one of our tracks and three guys bailing out of there and diving into the weeds. And he said, "Put the chopper down." The guy said, "Are you crazy? Look out there." He said, "That's an order." That's a general, right?
Yeah.
He said, "That's an order." He put it down. He one by one grabbed each one of those guys and pulled them out of there and put them in the chopper. They all are alive to this day because of him. That was the kind of guy we had as our general.
See, that's real leadership.
Mm.
He
was a good man.
Yeah. Yeah, he was.
That's the kind of leadership that's missing in the military now. Like when I was on the other episode. Yeah, when I was on the episode before this one, talking with Frank and them. They were talking about leadership and like field grade officers versus the generals that we have now that spend their entire time in DC at the Pentagon. Like they don't know I mean, yeah, they might have had their history with combat or whatever their case
They were
may
out
have
in the
been.
field and took a peek and
Yeah, and then as soon as they got the stars they on their collars and shoulders, they went back and hung out in office all day. We don't have the kind of leadership.
Yeah, it is for a PFC to go to general.
Yeah.
Well, he did. Now he was a general.
What was his come up story on that one? Like, how did he get that general promotion?
All the stuff he did. We were kicking ass everywhere.
So he went to Nam as a PFC.
No, he was a major or something.
Okay. When did he enlist as a PFC then?
I said that's where he started.
Okay.
But not in Vietnam. By the time he got there, he was a major or something.
Okay, so he was officer grade when he went to Vietnam.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But he wasn't one of those flying around, how many did you kill?
Yeah.
All I wanted was because they get ribbons and medals and
Yeah. The glory chasers versus the actual the leaders.
Crawl out there and pull those three guys out in the middle of firefight was going on like hellacious, and he pulled them out and got them to safety.
That's a real leader.
I'll never forget him. Never forget him.
Yeah.
And then he left Vietnam in a body cast.
Oh yeah, well I told you RPG hit there's a metal work and they sit on it and it hit right underneath them, little yards football field that away. And yeah, they had to put him in a body cast before it could even come home. Yeah. Patch him up in the body cast. Well, we wiped out. They were totally annoyed. We went in there and we ended up wiping them out. And we lost a lot of people. There's still some people they couldn't find. We only lost one that we couldn't find. But I mean, yeah, we wiped out. They were way big. There's no way we should have been able to beat them, but we did.
Huh?
Yeah, that was a big one. I didn't even get mine till we went on a reunion, and Andy Anderson came up to me and said, "You know, you have the medal." Presidential Unit Citation. You have to get your DD 214 back with all the stuff that we've done. And
so you had to go through the process of requesting a new DD 214.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, it's on there. Yeah.
Do you have to go to the Army Review Board and everything to get it updated, or do they just do it for you?
No, because he had put such a complete description of what went on and what we did.
Okay.
He was an amazing man. Amazing man. He's passed out since. Yeah, I dearly love that man. He was always out with us on the field.
Good leadership.
The guy before him rode around in the chopper and asked me, all he cared about, how many did you kill? How many did you kill? He didn't care about us. He didn't care about anything. Andy Anderson pulled those three guys out of there and put them in the chopper to get them out of there.
Tell that story again. What happened with that one?
His first day in the field, we were catching hell on the periphery, and he said he wanted to take the chopper out. He wanted to size up what's going on. And the first thing he saw was RPG hitting one of our tracks and three guys bailing out of there and diving into the weeds. And he said, put the chopper down. The guy said, "Are you crazy? Look out there." He said, "That's an order." That's a general, right?
Yeah.
He said, "That's an order." He put it down. He one by one grabbed each one of those guys and pulled them out of there and put them in the chopper. They all are alive to this day because of him. That was the kind of guy we had as our general.
See, that's real leadership.
Mm.
He was a good man.
Yeah. Yeah, he was.
That's the kind of leadership that's missing in the military now. Like when I was on the other episode. Yeah, when I was on the episode before this one, talking with Frank and them. We were talking about leadership and like field grade officers versus the generals that we have now that spend their entire time in DC at the Pentagon. Like they don't know. I mean, yeah, they might have had their history with combat or whatever their case may have been. They were out in the field
and took a peek and
yeah, and then as soon as they got the stars on their collars and shoulders, they went back and hung out in office all day. We don't have the kind of leadership.
It is for a PFC to go to general.
Yeah.
No, he did. No, he was a general.
What was his come up story on that one? Like, how did he get that general promotion?
All the stuff he did. We were kicking ass everywhere.
So he went to Nam as a PFC.
No, he was a major or something.
Okay. When did he enlist as a PFC then?
I said that's where he started.
Okay.
But not in Vietnam. By the time he got there, he was a major or something.
Okay, so he was officer grade when he went to Vietnam.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But he wasn't one of those flying around, how many did you kill?
Yeah.
All I wanted was because they get ribbons and medals and
Yeah. The glory chasers versus the actual the leaders.
Crawl out there and pull those three guys out in the middle of a firefight was going on, like hellacious, and he pulled them out and got them to safety.
That's a real leader.
I'll never forget him. Never forget him. Yeah.
And then he left Vietnam in a body cast.
Oh yeah, well I told you RPG hit there's a metal and they sit on it and it hit right underneath them, little yards football field that away, and they had to put him in a body cast before it could even come home. Yeah. Patch him up in a body cast.
I'm surprised that, like I said, I'm surprised he was able to make it home. I think
he was at every reunion. We always had reunions. He just was an amazing man. Very amazing man.
Yeah. He was, and I obviously didn't know him from Vietnam, but I met him during reunions, and he was a kind man. He was, I don't know if he was that way. It sounded like he had a lot of motivation for Vietnam, and he had a lot of respect for the men that fought under him.
Okay.
But he was a very kind man. Like, I remember the first time meeting him and thinking, this is not what I think a four-star is. Like, I'm thinking,
screaming at people.
Yes, exactly.
You're expecting some hard-charging, hard-ass. And
he was kind. He was a kind man.
And everybody worked for him because of this because of him.
Like one of his favorite things to say was he loved going to the reunions because he had the privilege of stepping back and watching the men interact with one another. But he knew in his heart that they were still looking at one another with 19-year-old eyes. Like they never got older, and he loved stepping back and just watching the interaction among the men at the reunion, because he said it'll never leave you, and they're still talking to one another as though Vietnam happened yesterday. So,
have you heard of the Battle of Lundy's Lane?
Oh, this is good.
I have not.
It's near the water, the Niagara Falls. We went on a reunion there. And we went through the Canadians brought their Canada side. But there was a church on the other side of the falls, and that's where we sat up. And we won the first. What war was going on then? I'm trying to
1812.
Huh?
The War of 1812.
Mm-hmm.
War of 1812, yes. We won the first battle, the War of 1812. And they had their people there, and it was amazing. I was like, why the fuck are we going to,
Why are we in Canada?
I had no clue. But there was a lot of ground. There were 9 of our guys buried there.
Yeah.
And we went to the Canadians and said, we want to get our guys back. And they said, no. And then they said, we've deeded that property to you.
To the United States.
And we took in a big brass plaque with all their names on it and put it on that grass.
But it was
That's
from 1912.
Awesome. Oh, it was amazing. That was the best reunion we ever had.
Oh my gosh, that was so interesting. And it was quite a ceremony. It was very
in our bag.
Formal.
Our bagpiper beat theirs.
There was like a bagpipe showdown. And that was really cool too. But this plot of land, when the U.S. government, I guess in the early 1900s, said we would like to bring our men back. And they said, no, we're just going to make this part of the United States because they're a big part of our history also.
We'd like to keep them here as where they're at.
And let them rest in peace.
Yes.
So,
that is awesome. The role that we played for them.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. Like, with everything going on in the world today, people forget that there's allies, and that even though we've had issues with people in the past, they can still be allies. And even if we don't get along all the time,
Right.
But this whole thing was melded together, and we marched with them and the whole 9 yards. It was really, unbelievable. Yeah, that was the best reunion we've ever been to.
Oh, I think so. And we were in Fort Benning, or Fort Moore, and then back to Benning. Yeah.
Benning.
Benning. But, and that was an amazing reunion also.
Well, people sit in there and work the things.
They let us play on the computers. I got to play on the computer, but it was war games. And so there's just a bunch of computers. And so, and this is what they do with the men. They put them in front of the computers. And at the time that we went, there was the war in Afghanistan was still going on. And so when you flipped on the computer, you were in Afghanistan. Mm-hmm. And it just, to get the young men and women accustomed to what the layout of the land looked like. And this is where there's a bakery, and this is where there's housing and things like this. But you got your assignment, and you had to learn. You had a couple minutes to learn, like, the codes to put in order to shoot, to run, to whatever else. I don't exactly remember. But I made it through my whole tour through the city without getting shot. And I happened to look over to the person sitting next to me, and his screen was black. And I said, "What happened to you?" And he said that he went to drop down and roll with his gun. He banged his head on the cement, and the computer came up and said, "You're unconscious," and turned the screen black. I mean, it was like that realistic. I'm like, well, I lived through the whole thing. I mean, and I'm still conscious. So this is good.
So, Harry, your wife is high speed, and the guy next to her apparently is Private Pile.
Yeah. But on the computers, it was awesome because if you ran for too long, like if you put your person in constant motion for too long, it gave you a timeout and you had to sit for a minute. Mm-hmm. You know, like
one hand, I wouldn't have.
Like just real life stuff. It was very interesting. And they said that the reason that they did that was because they're war games, but you're not using ammunitions. It's just AI on the computer. Yeah. So it gets the young men and women ready for what's going to happen. Oh, I sat in an Abrams tank. Oh, that was
like
awesome.
new, or was this like late 2010s?
This was like 2010s. This was like 2010s. Yeah.
Okay. So that's the one I'm familiar with.
But you were laying on your back? I was laying on my back.
Okay.
So my feet were here, laying like this, and you're looking into a mirror. Like a TV screen. Like a TV screen.
Okay.
It's like your backup camera, but it was forward. Oh, so that you could see what was going on. But your head wasn't above.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, this isn't, because this was all new to me. Like I'm like, but then once you saw the way they made adjustments, I'm like, yes, you don't really want your driver sitting out there.
She didn't get a Purple Heart.
I mean, she didn't bang her head off concrete
or anything like that. Consciousness.
So it's not like she rolled over with her gun and hit her head off the curb.
But they let me sit in an APC there too, also because they have.
Well, she knew what that drug was from.
Yeah, and so they opened one up for me so that I could sit in there and just get a feel for what Harry had.
Was it the same generation of APCs?
Yeah, they have a new one now. It's really good.
Yeah,
it's got armor now. It actually has armor.
That would have been a little more important back in the day.
Those things swam. You had to put the tracks going full speed. But the new one's really, really good.
Well, and then remember when you got a water buffalo caught between you and the bridge?
Well, I was on the bridge. Well, yeah, and we were going. They started pulling our tracks back off where they were fighting because we were shooting down too many rubber trees. So the only time we got out when the guys were out were when they were catching really bad shit. Mm-hmm. And so I was my platoon leader. I was the first to track all of this because he was gun hard as could be.
Of course, you have the guy that wants to be point all the time.
Yeah. Oh, he'd be up in the middle of a firefight, spraying people. He's nuts. He was a good guy. He was a really good guy, but he didn't make it back.
Yeah.
He was in the second half where officers don't have to be out in the field.
Mm.
And he still managed to get himself killed.
But the water buffalo.
The boar. Yeah. Oh, the water buffalo. Yeah, that was funny. I was onto the bridge, and there's not that much room with an APC going across that bridge. And there was a water buffalo coming at me, and I thought, what am I going to do? I'm not going to stop with a whole column of tracks behind me.
Yeah.
So I just kept going, and he would be like a ping pong ball. And then I looked back, and he took off.
He was fine. So maybe they didn't stop ammunitions, but they didn't stop water buffaloes either, you know? So.
And this is not rated for water buffalo.
No, no.
That was, yeah,
Awesome. That's insane. It's just funny that you said that, though, because when you said water buffalo, I didn't know you meant the animal.
Oh,
yeah, yeah.
you thought
we call
water.
Oh,
yeah,
the
water tanks,
thing,
water
yeah.
buffaloes.
No.
So I was thinking, like, you had a random water buffalo parked on the bridge and you ran into it. I'm like, why did they leave the buffalo parked on the bridge?
Yeah.
Well, we were at the old French fort, and there was a big cement swimming pool in it and all that, but that's where we put our tracks because they stopped us from going out with the guys because we're tearing down too many of the rubber trees. And so what would happen in the middle of the night, they, come on, guys, they're catching hell. So I was always the lead track. And we just went and ran in and got the guys on the tracks and got them out of there. We had a lot of firepower. I had the one that's a rifle, but it's a round cartridge. What's it called?
The ones are they mounted?
Well, you had one that you could hold, and then they gave me an experimental one that had like a tuna fish thing on it, kind of thing, but it was filled with it shot, or not RPGs, but it shot hand grenades.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I know the new version. I don't remember what that one from back then was called, but the new one that my generation used was the Mark 19.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Mark 19 grenade launcher.
But what we had, though, was this one I had was experiment. I could just pull it up and pump. I could blow up a whole hedgerow.
Wow.
Boom, 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 boom. Yeah.
Sounds like you had an early version of the Mark 19.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was cool.
So, since you were in mechanized infantry and all that, did you happen to run across, or do you know the stories of the war trucks?
The war trucks.
The big deuce and a halves that people would put the 50 cals and that on,
yeah,
like that would up armor?
Yeah, well, they ran stuff up and down the highways there to get mail and food and everything. Yeah, we had those.
Did you? So you?
I didn't drive one. I drove APC.
But you saw them running?
Oh yeah.
Wow. Yeah. See, I heard about them from somebody that I watched on YouTube. He did a story on them, and I thought it was awesome. But I asked a couple of the Vietnam vets that I knew, and they didn't know anything about them. So I didn't know if they actually Well, and I know that obviously they really existed, but I didn't know how prevalent they were.
Well, there were points where we were so outnumbered that like the guys with the Medal of Honor one. We did what we had to do, but you couldn't just stop.
Yeah, no.
So we saw those trucks, and a lot of times we needed them. We were running roads sometimes because we had to keep the mail and food and everything else going too.
I'll put it up for all y'all to see. But like that one they called the Ace of Spades.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Do you remember seeing stuff like that?
Yeah. Well, we had two 60s M60s, and I had that thing that would sit there and shoot out 40
millimeters.
No, 40 grenades. It was a grenade launcher.
Yeah.
In fact, I jumped off the track and my grenade launcher, the hand was, luckily that they have to go so many rounds before they blow up.
Yeah, that's same concept. It has to spin so many times before it'll actually detonate, so you don't have a dud fall and explode.
Well, I might have lost a leg.
That's why they started doing that.
Well, I mean, they were firing like crazy, and I just wanted to get off the damn track. And I grabbed this. We were catching hell, and there was a hedgerow, and I used that sucker, and I pumped a bunch in there. And when we got there, it hit Chi-Com lady, the Chinese lady, she looked Chinese, hit her on top of the head with it. It hollowed her head up.
Jeez.
Yeah. That's the only. I when we were in firefights, if I had a chance, I would fire too and help.
Right, suppress.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so.
Yeah, in that situation, you do what you have to do to help.
Yeah. Right. Well, I wanted to. If you have more firepower, that helps our guys.
Yeah. Well, it's the age-old tradition: accuracy by volume.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. It was made me strong. I just. It never bothered me. I knew God was with me. I shouldn't have been there. They couldn't believe I was alive. I mean, this was blown off. No muscle here. My head. What did I have? Collapsed lung. Collapsed lung.
Yeah.
And here I am.
But you know what? And I always tell you this: God wasn't done with you yet.
Oh, he's still not. That's why you're still here.
He's still not. Yeah. And you know what? And that's the heart. That was very difficult. But the hard part is finding out what he wants you to do now, too.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Like, you got to be in earnest and ask.
Teaching.
Yeah.
I fell in love with teaching.
And he had exposure to Agent Orange, okay? Mm-hmm. And so a lot of his health.
The canopy always got sprayed with it.
Yeah.
They had to be able to see so they can bomb and shoot and stuff.
Yeah.
So,
but a lot of his health issues, since I've known him, have been directly related back to the Agent Orange. And so, I mean, even that exposure and the consequential health issues afterwards. I mean, I think that's all in a big...
So I'm glad you survived that as well.
Yeah. I mean, it's all a big plan. Yeah. And
but I knew God we both
me. Yeah, we both experienced.
I really did
a lot of stuff together.
I'm happy for this post.
Yeah.
I just knew that the way things came down, I shouldn't have been there, and I was. Yeah, God took care of me. He really did.
Well, he had you there for a purpose. He let you survive for a purpose, and you're still here telling your story for a reason too. Yeah. Like. Everything has a reason. We don't know what that reason is. I'm a strong proponent and believer in that myself because you never know how your story is going to impact somebody else. It may be what they need to hear to get through their time, or it may be the experience they need that make the decisions they need to make.
Or you stand back and you look at your own children and you say, "That's why I had," when you're looking way in the future and the children are all grown up and you're like, oh my goodness, that's what the Lord had planned. Yeah. So, I have the privilege of standing back and like looking and going, okay, he's here because we have these 4 wonderful grandsons and these 2 great grandsons. They needed to be here.
Yeah.
And this is how it started. Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you this much. I would give anything for my granddad to still be here so I could talk to him about things, get his experience. So your grandkids and your great grandkids still getting to talk to you and you're able to share your story and your life history with them. Yeah. That's going to be massively beneficial to them.
And we live fairly close. I mean, our great grandsons live in Beaver, which is not that far away.
No, not in all things considered.
No, you jump in the car and we're 50 minutes away from them. So they're such a blessing.
We tried to have kids. It didn't happen.
Yeah, so we didn't. But Harry had been married before. Mm-hmm. He had 2 children, and between the 2 of them, we have 4 grandsons, and then the 2 great grandsons. So, you know what? God didn't give me children, but He put a lot of them around me. So
He gave you children. He just didn't give you children that you had to birth.
That's right. That's it exactly. So I am forever thankful and blessed. I am.
You guys make an awesome couple, and one of the success stories of
and then I talked her into going to culinary school.
Yeah.
Oh, so now she can cook for you too.
I retired from nursing.
My stepfather was a mess sergeant. He ran a mess hall, so I was cooking from 5-6 years old. But he
was a tough bugger, your stepfather.
So your stepdad cooked, your dad cooked in the Navy.
Yes.
So
yes,
cooking just runs in your family too.
heard she watched her dad die on the unit. She's post open heart, after open heart surgery. And I took her and I said, let's go down and go across to the other side of the river and let's go to the culinary. I want to look at culinary stuff. And she looked at that place and she fell in love with it.
Yeah.
And she is one hell of a chef.
But you know what? It's all nurturing. It doesn't matter if you call it nursing, if you call it cooking, if you call it babysitting. It's a nurturing job. You know, like I can either pull out your chest tubes after open heart surgery, or I can feed you a meal. You know, and when your tummy is hungry, and so it's all just taking care of people, and that's what we're here for, to take care of one another. Mm-hmm. That's it.
I'm looking at it.
Oh yes, you are.
And he wasn't crazy. He sent me to cooking school because he wanted to be able to eat well. Yeah.
No, I was cooking since I was 5 years old.
It was a smart move.
Since I was 5 years old.
Yeah, but now it's easier for you. You just ask for it.
But he does help clean up.
Well, that's good.
He's good at cleaning up. Absolutely.
I'm sure he's very good at cleaning up his plate.
Yes.
He probably makes sure that plate's nice and clean.
No, I mean the kitchen. He's a good cleaner. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, that's the military.
Oh, probably. But I don't have stars or...
Well, my stepfather, he got an award for...
A Michelin award?
No, it was something...
For his mess hall, though.
He got an award that's the highest award you can get for a mess hall.
Okay.
And he went back the second time and got a second one.
Yeah.
Ow.
Yeah, he was really good.
And then
but
even
after... problems out.
Yeah.
That's a thing in the military.
Yeah.
It is, and it's something that's kicking these new vets' butts all the time, too. Like, I talked earlier about the caffeine, and we talked about smoking. That's still a big thing with them, but I think it's a vet thing, and active duty reserve doesn't matter thing, period, especially anybody who's deployed or anything like that. Seen combat, that's a big thing for them because they lean into it
to escape.
Yeah, I mean it helps distract them. And it's not necessarily the alcohol does a brain erasing effect, because everybody knows if they drink, it doesn't erase your memory.
No,
not unless you're like plastered drunk and you do all that, and it's the current memories that you're making that you forget, not the old ones.
Right.
So it's more the time that you're distracted while you're drinking. You're hanging out with people. You're not thinking about the past. You're thinking about the present.
Yeah.
And that's what they get.
Ford Hood, my friend, best buddy's father, was the one that ran Fort Hood.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And every time I went to his house, both his father and his mother were stinking drunk.
Yeah.
The Army, that's a way of life with a lot of Army people.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I never saw them sober. And he was running Fort Hood. I guess he knew that he had to do certain things, so he'd wait till he, come down a little bit.
Yeah. No, I've seen that firsthand too. Especially it's functioning alcoholism. They know what their expectations are, so they time their
drinking
so that it comes down right in time for them to be where they got to be.
Yeah.
Well, we were there in 1950, in Germany. They were going through our dumpsters for food.
Yeah, because they had just lost World War II.
Yeah.
And Dolly coming up the stairs, you could hear him. He'd get a whole dolly full of beer. He just drank and drank and drank. He finally did get it. He finally got over it.
He did.
He did.
He really did. And I think, and then we lost him not that long after he stopped. But you know what? It was nice to see him as himself rather than maybe with a little bit too much in him or not participating because he was grumpy.
Yeah.
But then we lost him. But you know what? There was a short period.
He was a dry drunk. He never really dealt with it.
It was that nice to see a regular person, for sure.
Yeah.
But
if I called him on Sundays, I'd call him Sundays. I called him one time, and he goes, "What the hell?" He said, "He said the cuckoo clock's still clucking." I had a German cuckoo clock there, and I didn't call him before it stopped. So he's all pissed off.
Oh, he was.
I was grown, and way past all that stuff. I didn't have time for that.
But I think it was still the Army influence. If you were going to call, if you were supposed to call it too, you better call it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Break, stand by to receive. This segment is brought to you by American Legion Post 548. Legion is out there busting their chops on Capitol Hill and in your community, battling like champs for veterans benefits and a VA that doesn't make you want to kickstart a landmine. They're like over-caffeinated E4s who actually get stuff done. We're veterans fighting to make sure America has our backs, one hard-won perk at a time. Swing by our website or your local post for the full rundown. That's legion.org. Send it. I don't want to say everything changed, but a lot of things, there's a lot of differences between the generations, and you can kind of measure those changes. The World War II era vets, even up to Korea, the Vietnam vets, and then the GWAT vets.
Yeah.
There's a difference in the mentality from each one's too, but there's also a common underlying thing, and that's the PTSD. What we called it changed. I mean, it went from shell shock in World War II to, I don't know what, they started kind of throwing the term PTSD around with Vietnam. Yeah. But it was still kind of a weird, not talked about kind of thing.
It wasn't accepted as...
glad to be alive.
Yeah.
It wasn't really accepted as a diagnosis, I think.
Yeah, and then now it's...
We know.
Finally establishes it. But,
we know it's a bad...
But his generation, without having the diagnosis and then just calling it shell shock, like he didn't have time to process some of that stuff. So it was even worse for them because they didn't have the ability to say, yeah, this is what it is. This is how we treat it. This is how we understand it. Even so much in your generation, it was still kind of taboo to talk about. It was understood to a certain extent that it was a thing, but people didn't really understand that it was acceptable to talk, that, you know, they needed help with things that they've seen and did and experienced. And now it's a little more, it's still not as prevalent for treatment that it should be.
There in Vietnam, a lot of guys.
Yeah.
And you know what I noticed too, as far as being accepted PTSD, if you call the VA system, whether it's for an appointment or to check on a lab value or something like that, the very first thing is if this isn't an emergency, please, and they give you the number for the VA hotline.
Yes.
No matter what you're calling for, you know, so they make it out there. And if you go to like Heinz campus or you go to University Drive, I'm assuming up here in Butler also.
Yeah, Abram Leffy, the
Monroeville's really.
There are posts.
I went for a breathing test because I have COPD. And normally it's just a pipe and then there's a mouthpiece on there. This thing, I got in there and the shell went around me and he could change the pressure. And it was like a whole different.
It's a hospital of the future.
Well, they spent a lot of money on that hospital, but it's really, the other hospitals don't have half the stuff they have.
Yeah, I might have to go check out the one in Monroeville then, because
it's right behind Monroeville Mall, if you're familiar with that area, right off of 22.
Okay.
But everywhere I've noticed, no matter where we go, which VA we go to, there are posters everywhere about PTSD. And please call this number, or this is when this support group meets. Please join us. You know, so it's nice to see that it's being treated, more widely treated, rather than being pushed down under, because you can only push so many things down under before you explode.
Yeah.
So
especially with that, I mean, that's one of the causes for the. I have
a really good piece to do that.
Yeah.
Ellen Vecchio. And I had a guy named Dr. Waters, and he was really good. And we worked for a nonprofit for a long time. And then Waters was really good. He would find people for me that, I'd go help them, all kinds of stuff. But this lady, he called her. He wanted to go over to the side where they have the people in wheelchairs and all that kind of stuff.
He wanted to go to hospice, huh?
Yeah, and hospice. He also did. Yeah. And he used to get me cards so we could help vets, from our nonprofit. And but he talked to her. She was retired. And he talked her out of
retirement
back to the VA because he didn't want to leave not knowing who was going to be taking care of the people that he did. He's a really good guy.
Yeah.
And so, sometimes I say bad things about VA, but there are some really good people there. Yeah. And she is really good.
Ellen is awesome.
Then I have another one in Aspen.
And she's civilian. So we have duplicates. We have a VA one and a civilian one, almost all the way down the line for him. I just have the civilian ones. So, yeah.
Did Mark was saying something about after the 65 and you have Medicaid, that the VA doesn't work with Medicaid. So if you have Medicaid and you go to the VA for appointments, you can't have it covered, something like that. I don't know if you ran into anything like that, or I'm assuming you don't have that issue because I'm going to assume you're service connected.
Yeah. You know what? It's considered 100% retired from the Army. So he had TRICARE up until the point that he retired from community college from working.
Yeah, he's TRICARE for life.
And now he's TRICARE for life.
Yeah.
And so we don't have any, we carry Medicare, but we also have TRICARE for life. So we don't have, maybe if you're not retired from the Army, maybe that's what Mark was talking about.
I don't know.
It's 100% retired.
He was retired from the Air Force.
Oh.
So he was saying something about it's the VA and Medicare. So I'll bend his ear on it some more. We kind of touched on it a little bit.
Put in the service.
I was in for just under a year. I got medically out.
Okay.
Oh, you didn't?
Okay.
No.
So you're not retired?
No. Well, no.
Okay.
I got medically discharged. Okay. I'm going through a process of doing
right now
a reevaluation on it. I know it's not going to get med boarded and go to medical retirement.
Okay.
But I'm trying to get them to change a couple of things on my service record because I would still be in if I wasn't broken.
That's right. I have a good friend. In fact, she was a roommate in college with me, and her son was in the Air Force, and he had to, when the pandemic was going on, he had to get a COVID shot, and he had a bad reaction to it. And he's now in a process, it sounds like what you're dealing with now also, because he had to leave the Air Force for health reasons. But he had been in for like 3 years. So.
Yeah, I wasn't trying to be rude. My ear started ringing.
That's okay. He's due all the time. All the time.
I have a really good person, Chisholm and Chisholm. They're just really unbelievable.
It's a law group that works for veterans.
They do things for veterans.
Let us know.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to shoot that my way, if you're recommending them for people, I'll even put it up on the channel for people to go check out. So you said Chisholm and Chisholm?
Chisholm and Chisholm. Yeah, I'll get you.
Yeah, I'll put the link out in the description.
But we've never had to go physically to go see them. Everything's been done over the computer or the phone. So it's not like you need to
They just finished a bunch of stuff for me, and they've got 10% more on this. And they're really good.
Yeah.
They're very good.
And it might be able to help you, Rob.
Yeah. Well, I'm VA. I'm on 100% in TDIU.
Okay.
So
what's TDIU?
TDIU is temporary total disability, individual unemployability. So I'm in that weird, awkward space between 100% but not 100%.
Yeah.
Because I'm not able to work, so my condition is paid and treated as 100%, even though my secular rating is not 100%. So I get all the benefits of being 100%, including the pay and the treatment. Like I'm eligible for the dental and the vision.
Yeah,
which is fantastic.
Good.
I get all the 100% benefits, but my secular rating is still what it was prior to the TDIU assignment.
You know what I did at one time? I was going to the dentist at Hines. And these guys were sitting there, and I love people, and I talk to people. And I started talking to them. I said, where are you guys headed? They said, we're going to take the union test for, I can't remember one of the union things. And I says, well, how are you fixing your math? How are you taking your math to take care of it? Because you're going to have a lot of math there. And they said, oh, well, they told us to just go online. Oh, yeah, they're going to go online and become teachers? No, so anyway, I went to the DOM, which is where they have the people with drug and alcohol problems. That's the one on
Heinz.
Yeah.
And I talked to the lady there, and I have an outline I give because I teach people how to learn. Then you can teach them.
Right.
And so I gave her that thing. She spent almost 2 hours looking it over, and she looked at me and she said, "You have the 2:00 class." So I spent almost 400 hours teaching in the dorm, and something came along and they changed something.
Oh, the pandemic happened.
Oh, the pandemic. That's right.
Yeah. They had to stop all that.
I couldn't do it anymore. But I got a Martoni Award. He's a guy from the community college system. He was the president of the one out at Monroeville, yeah. Okay. She's my helper here. Mm-hmm. Oh, I had Lyme disease. It comes and goes, my memory. But
it's fine. Take your time.
Yeah,
Martoni.
Yeah, the Martoni. There's only been 3 of them given out. And it's for not what you did as a soldier, but what you did afterwards. And all that time I put in helping those guys. I have a good friend, Rick Weber, and he put me in for it, and I got it.
Well, I mean, you deserve it.
Well, that's not why I did that. I wanted to hide those people waiting.
Well,
yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
See, in studying a student of history, like I am, most of the people who get the awards, they mean a whole lot. Like we're talking Medal of Honor, Presidential Unit Citations, stuff like that. The first words out of their mouth whenever you thank them for their stuff that they've done is usually, "I didn't do it for the reward.
Yeah.
I did it for the guys next to me, or I did it for this reason or that reason." And that's what makes it even more special, because they weren't doing it because they were chasing glory. They did it because it was the right thing to do. I have this.
To you talk. I mean, you've really been around the block. No, you're really spot on with what you've been talking about. That's pretty cool. It's hard to find people. There are people that get into jobs that really don't belong there.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, I appreciate you recognizing that. I've had my fair share of history, but, I'm just one person.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, my history could be said at any time. I'll talk to anybody that wants to know about it, but this is about y'all and your story and all that.
Well, initially what they did is they put me in this big room where all these people come in to try to find some jobs and that kind of stuff. And when I went to her, I said, "Look, I've been over there." And she ran that too. I said, "I haven't helped one person." And then I gave her my outline and she ran that. And then she said, "You have 2:00 class." And I said, "I taught there a long time." The pandemic came along. That's when I couldn't, teach there.
Yeah, that's what you were saying. As the pandemic came, and that changed a lot of things for a lot of folks. I've seen businesses that were wildly successful go down the tube overnight because of that stuff. I mean, between the shutdowns and the mandatory door closures, and then just the economy itself sucked. Like businesses that I would not have thought failed overnight, and I'm sad to see them go. But at the same time, I mean, I'm a strong proponent for capitalism.
Oh yeah.
If it's going to succeed, it's going to succeed, and if it's not, it's not. Like that's just the way that the market works. It sucks, but it's the way it works.
Yeah.
And you gotta either adapt and overcome, or you gotta take it when it's handed to you.
Yeah. What does that talks about the?
Yeah, that's your placard there.
Oh yeah, it talks about how it got again.
You want to go over that story a little bit? How your unit got that?
Well,
like what happened?
Well, we kicked ass everywhere.
Yeah.
It's really. What happened? The Ben Cooey rubber plantations where we were.
Mm-hmm.
There was an old runway there, and we were coming back out. We had been on recon, and all of a sudden we got hellacious fire. Well, it was I have the name of the unit, but it was a unit that they outmanned us like unbelievable in terms of people. We were in a 4.5-hour firefight. And we were running out of ammo. We had all kinds of ammo on tracks. And so we had to get ammo airdropped. And it kept on with 50 cal barrels melting. And,
we were melting barrels, jeez.
Yeah, we were melting 50 cal barrels, yes. And that part ended. And so they backed off. They were just feeling us out. Mm. The next day, we went back into the Vancouver rubber plantation, and we took a break. It was around noon. In fact, I have after action reports, and I can point right where I got hit. But when that happened, we were going along. We had then stopped. We took a break, mm-hmm. and then all of a sudden, all hell broke loose. I mean, they had broken up their people into teams, just doing RPGs. That's all they did, and they were bouncing everywhere. And if the points don't hit, they'll bounce and take off from different directions and all that stuff.
Right, ricochets.
And yeah, so I was not going to leave those guys on the ground. And so I waited till there was nobody. I was sure nobody was behind me. And I started backing up. And then those guys, they had my protection on my track. And they got up and pulled out of there. Well, yeah, we really caught all hell with them, and they were way outnumbered us.
So what happened with that was you were backing up, and then right when you started to back up...
That's when I got hit. Yeah.
Well, RPG, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. This is one of the guys at the reunion. He said, I found your track the next day. He said it was still running.
Talk about some good fuel efficiency on that thing, man.
Yeah. But yeah, because it was idle. But yeah, that had I not backed up, I guess I'd have been blown away. Worse. I mean, I caught the one RPG just right. And the other guys, like I said, the other tracks backed up. I just realized the RPGs were just bouncing everywhere. And I'm seeing the weeds moving, and I could tell the guys are trying to get the hell out of there. When they did a write-up for me for the Steelers had to come in. They did a write-up, and they had
that's awesome.
They had a video, but I could not back my track up. And at one point, it settled down a little bit, the firing, and so I went to back up because the guys got past me. They were all past me. They had cover. So out there's no cover. It's a wide open field.
Yeah, your only cover is the machines.
And so they had some cover in my track, and then the other guys came forward. I assume, I don't know.
So they either came forward, or the other guys booked it to the other machines. But at that point, you had already received your welcoming gift.
Well, what happened was Roberto Garcia, a good friend of mine, he saw me jump out of there. I'm sitting there and thinking, because I know they find tracks.
So you jumped out?
Huh? No, not at that point, because at that point I still had to figure out what I was going to do. I figured, I said, if I don't climb out of here, they're not going to know I'm alive.
Fair.
Okay, so I couldn't see. My eyes were ghosted shut, and I had to go straight up. And I tried to stand up. I couldn't even see anything. And my leg gave out. And I just fell flat on my face. And I fractured 3 teeth.
So you found the curb. you found the curb.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, there weren't any curbs. It was just dirt and whatever. But yeah, when I hit the ground, I flopped like a fish out of water. As you know, I just went berserk.
Jeez.
But my friend he saw me and he came over and he putting stuff on, trying to stop the bleeding in as many places as he could. And he hollered for a medic, and the medic came, and the medic they don't put blood in you, they put plasma.
Mm-hmm. Plasma. Okay.
Plasma. Yeah, because you get the wrong blood, you're going to kill someone.
Yeah.
Right.
Wrong blood type. So he put the medic put that liquid in me, and they called the chopper in, and the guy didn't. The firefight was still going like hellacious, and he said, "Do you see what's going on here? No, we can't come down. There's too." My platoon leader said, "If you don't bring that chopper down, I'm going to blow it out of the air." That's what he said. I heard him say it. And so the guy landed, and they put me on the chopper, and they took me back. And I can remember they put me on the table, and the guy goes, "You know you lost your arm." I said, "Yeah." And yeah, I mean, what was I going to say? But yeah, I think at some point they gave me something to, put me out. And then.
So you were awake through all of it up to this point?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Dang.
Yeah.
Did you have any like major pain at that point, or were you like?
I'm tough. I didn't let any of that bother me. I mean, I sat there and picked up my leg until I could get it off the table. There was just no way I was going to sit there and lay there.
Yeah. So you said they brought in a helicopter. Was it like the Hueys?
Yeah.
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 The Huey pilots back then were some brave sons of guns.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I've heard stories from them too.
But it was that. I mean, we were so outnumbered.
Mm-hmm.
And they knew, they could tell what was going on. They were looking at it from up above, and they just they didn't want to come down. They didn't want to land the chopper.
A couple years back at the Heinz History Center, they had Vietnam from the time that it started. That U.S. involvement, like in 1950, 1955.
Officially started.
Yeah, until 75 when it ended. And there was a bunch of rooms to go through, like they had it blocked off. And the one room was the room where it had a Huey in it. And it wasn't on, obviously,
right.
But they had the
noise,
the audio from it. And I watched him walk into that room and just stand back for a second because he recognized. And I realized that is very recognizable.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
That sound that it makes.
It's a very iconic sound.
Yes, it is.
It's as iconic as the sound of an AK or the sound of an M16. Like, you don't forget the sounds whenever you hear them.
Yeah. And they had on the walls that you could read about the pilots.
Mm-hmm.
And it was amazing. Some of the maneuvers and some of the landings that they made.
Yeah.
It was just like you had... I feel like you had to be fearless. Like,
oh yeah,
well, in war, period.
Yeah, no, everybody has a different varying level of fearlessness and a job to do.
Yeah,
well, mine was getting my ass out of it.
Driving any kind of equipment whatsoever, whether it be a tracked vehicle, a Humvee, flying a helicopter or a plane, that's a different level than just being on the ground on your feet, right?
Yeah.
You're not as easy to defend yourself, even if your equipment has guns all over it. You're relying on other people to see what you see at the same time you see it to take care of it.
Yeah.
Versus when you're on the ground, you're still relying on your squad mates to see things you don't see, but you have a gun that you can manipulate immediately to take out whatever threat is in front of you. If you're driving a track, you can't necessarily immediately pull out a M249 and start laying suppressive fire down while you're trying to drive.
And you can't see what's behind you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then those Huey pilots, I have a friend, or an acquaintance, I'll say, that wrote a book. He was a Huey pilot in Vietnam. And he wrote a book, and he sent me a copy of it. I literally, when they had the LLR piece, he was one of the main Huey pilots for one of the divisions that they had. And he'd fly them in and out, and he told me stories about how they would have that Huey 3 feet off the water going down the rivers like just tall enough that they don't hit the heads of people.
South,
yeah, just tall enough that they would not hit people on boats if they flew by them with the blades. They might get close with the chopper itself, but they're not going to decapitate anybody with the blades. So he was talking about how they were in and out through valleys, doing quick over the top of the trees to land hot and then fly back out again and dropping them off and picking them up.
Get all this information.
I love history.
Yeah.
And I just talk to people that have experiences in their lives. I connect with people because everybody has a story.
And you know what? You might get to talk to somebody that knew your grandpa.
I would love
and wouldn't that be awesome?
I would love that. Yeah. There's not very many of that generation left, though.
Yeah.
That's
we have a friend, Ward, he's 100 years old. We just had a birthday party for him at our church. Huge party. And he was first up on D-Day.
Wow.
Is it Omaha or Utah?
Utah Beach.
Wow.
He was the first one to the top. The Army had newsreel. We actually got to see him crawling up. And
that's awesome.
I was in choir.
Yeah.
I was in choir. And when I saw him up there, I couldn't sing. I was crying.
It was, and you could tell it was Warren. I mean,
yeah,
a very young Warren, but it was Warren on that beach. It was amazing.
The first time
I would love to talk to him too.
Mm-hmm. He's a good friend of mine. The nonprofit we had, they introduced me and they told him a little bit about me, and because he was already on the board, and he looked at me and he said, "How do you get over?
The guilt?
How do you get over the guilt that you survived?"
Survivor's guilt.
Survivor's guilt. Yeah, I didn't. I was like shocked. I was like barely there. But, and so he was real careful with me.
Mm-hmm.
And then one day we have a big, huge lake behind our church. And there's a step thing you can look out over. And he was standing there and I walked up behind him and he turned around and he looked at me and he said, "You're my favorite." And
quite the honor.
Up on the board. Yeah. I love that man. I love him to death. He's
a good man, Warren.
Well, that literally just goes to prove my other point from earlier, though. Like, every generation has a survivor's guilt. They have the imposter syndrome, and everybody thinks that those terms are just made up. The PTSD, the survivor's guilt, the imposter syndrome.
No, that's real. No, that's all.
You got people that, me, for example, that was a huge thing that I had to overcome, being in my situation with the little bit of time I served and the fact I never deployed anywhere, that kind of stuff. Imposter syndrome was a huge thing that I had to overcome. Just being willing to even call myself a vet took years.
That's hard.
Because I didn't do anything.
I hate seeing that.
Yeah.
Because every single soldier, no matter what the heck you do, it's for the big picture. And the whole picture doesn't work without every one of those people. And they don't get that.
Yeah.
They don't get that.
But it takes a while to get that mentality whenever you're in the situation that guys like me were in, especially whenever people who are in similar situations to yours, or the current generation, or even your generation, sit there and they're like, well, in the VFW sense, I'm not talking about other VSOs or anything like that, but the VFW, it's specifically for vets who deployed to foreign wars. They had to have deployed. Well, if you didn't do that, you're not a real vet.
That's garbage.
That's one service organization that does that kind of thing. There's other ones that do, and there's other ones that are fantastic that accept people.
This is a good one.
The American Legion is a fantastic one. Yeah. We'll talk about them in just a few
minutes.
They
have really good guys down there. Federal building.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Federal building, yeah. And they're really good.
Yeah.
They're really good.
But I mean, that's one of the issues is a lot of these newer guys that didn't go and do these. Like, one of our Legion members has a similar situation. They didn't deploy. So they still struggle with the mentality, even though they did they did a whole heck of a lot in their history, which I'll have them on at some point. But they did a lot in their time in service, but they never went overseas. So they feel like they don't deserve any of the benefits or anything like that. And I'm like, I talked to them from where I'm at.
I flat out tell them what I just said to you. Every single soldier
has a purpose.
It has a purpose that for the whole overall thing. And without all those people, things wouldn't work very well. And that, at some point, that's going to settle in. Especially if we can get enough people to say those things.
Yeah. Well, once I got to the point where I could actually accept that for myself, I actually picked up the mantra and the motto, if you will, that when you were in the military and they issued you a piece of equipment, you had to sign for said equipment, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you had to sign for that equipment and anything happened to it, you were responsible for it. You had to pay for the damages to it, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you signed up for the military or got drafted, you became government property, right?
Mm-hmm.
Government damages you in any way, shape, or form, you're their property. They signed for you. They're responsible for taking care of you until you no longer have those issues. Well, you're not a lizard. You can't grow back an arm. Right. Some of these guys can't grow back arms and legs. Some of them are not going to be able to heal their brains from the TBIs that they got from explosives over there. Okay. Burn pits.
Aaron can't get hearing aids that work for him because his ears ring so badly.
Yeah. So I mean, some of these things are not going to be recoverable. So they're required to pay for these things out of pocket. And there's people that are like, "Well, I didn't have anything bad happen to me." Something along that line, whether it's something that happened to you mentally or physically, nobody gets out of war unscathed.
Right.
No.
And if you didn't go to the combat zones themselves, I'm sure that there's still something that you had. And if not, great. I'm happy that nothing happened to you.
Yeah.
But that still doesn't say that you don't get to be the same level as anybody else.
You're still part of the big picture.
Yeah.
Yeah. They did a skin graft on my leg from here to here, all the muscles. And the guy looked at me and says, "Well, if you do it on the ward, I'll let you have a pass next weekend." And the nurse, he walked away for a couple of minutes, and the nurse said, "They never take the first time. They take sometimes 3, 4, 5 times." He came in and he took the bandages off, and he said, "Holy shit, I healed like really well." He said, "It was healed completely. I got a pass."
Okay, then I take back what I said. I'm surprised you haven't started growing your arm back in the magic healer.
That was his motivation to get out of there for a weekend. Yeah.
Wait a minute, you mean if I heal, I get a weekend pass?
Yeah.
That dentist at Heinz?
Not at Heinz, no.
You should do Heinz. The guy they have there is really, really good.
I've been going to Butler for mine.
I guess they're all right, but this guy's amazing. He did a double implant.
Okay.
Two teeth. And
I'm going to be getting that done too.
Yeah. Okay. But he took that off. He took the cap off and he said, "Holy shit." And I said, "What?" And he said, "I never saw that happen." And I said, "Wow." He said, "Your tooth, it has healed over the part where I have to screw the piece in to hold the he said, "I've never healed." He calls me super healed. Same thing with my shoulder. Same thing happened there. And the guy was like, "Holy cow." So, yeah. God blessed me with really, really good healing.
I mean, I would have to say so. I mean, got a weekend pass after healing your leg. Your shoulder patched up pretty well. You got your teeth fixed. You beat cancer.
Yeah.
No, it's been a lot. But, I know.
Army needs to take some of your DNA and put it in a vial somewhere.
I think I'm a chaplain.
Yeah.
Well, first day in here, I got, we have a one-armed paper hanger. And then
you're on coat detail.
Came up to me afterwards, and he said, "You're all right."
You're our chaplain.
He said, "I knew you were a Christian that day." Mm-hmm. Well, you didn't have to say anything to me. He's a good guy. Bob's a good guy.
He is. Good man.
You said you were drafted.
Oh, yeah.
What do you think about the mentality between the draftees and the volunteers? So, like, people that were forced to do it versus people that volunteer. Do you think it's better when they were forced to do it, or worse when they were? Do you think it's better to be a volunteer, or do you think it's worse?
Well, I went into it. Well, I was an Army brat, first of all, so I knew a little bit with that stuff. I went in with, I'm going to make the best of it. I heard a DI telling the guy that he's hustling, I'm going to make you a squad leader. I said, I did 180. I hustled. I was a squad leader all through training, which made life much more bearable.
Yeah.
And I went that way. I mean, there was a black guy that was MFing the DI up on the pedestal because he just wanted to go home.
Mm-hmm.
And he pulled me aside. He said, "That's your man." He said, "You need to get that guy in shape." He said, "Run him around the battalion area and then beat the shit out of him." And so that's what I did. But I didn't even have to run him around. I just beat the shit out of him.
That was a different type of army back then, though.
I was an Army brat, and we used to go out, get some beer, and find some GIs, get in fights with them. I always knew I was going to end up at Fort Hood, but I didn't. But I didn't see the need to. I just beat the shit out. I could bench press like 480.
Holy crap!
Yeah, well, it was a religion. It was a religion, and yeah, I never had a problem with that.
Did you see a difference between the people that volunteered and the people that were drafted?
Well, you didn't really have the definition of the people that you had there. They were all there, and you had no clue what their background.
So you didn't know whether they were forced to be there. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of what I was asking. I didn't know if there was like a distinct mental difference of the people that you knew were forced to be there that didn't want to be versus the people who came of their own fruition. And
I mean, I got drafted. I didn't have to go. I was at Social Life Sunny.
So you got drafted but volunteered anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't gonna do that. I mean,
yeah.
The Sullivan brothers. There were 5 of them. They were on a battleship or one of the big ships. They all got killed in one fell swoop.
Yeah.
And so there's a survival. You can't be asked to do that.
Yeah, that's actually the whole premise of that movie, Saving Private Ryan,
that
they came out with, because they changed it up a little bit as far as I know, or they based it off a different story, but same premise, that they had to go get the last surviving child.
I wasn't going to do that because then some poor guy's going to have to go, and I could have done that.
So you still really lived by that, if not me, then who?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I wasn't, I knew God was with me.
Mm-hmm.
I truly did. And we don't have enough God in this society lately.
No, it's definitely a topic that people try to avoid because they either don't want to discuss it because they don't want to irritate somebody, or they don't believe in it themselves, or they don't want to offend somebody, which I don't worry about offending people. Like, honestly, if you spend your whole life worrying about what other people are going to think about what you have to say, you can't get your point across.
As long as you're being reasonable and not.
Well, no, you don't got to be. There's a difference between getting your point across and not caring about the feelings directly of what they think about your words.
Yeah.
Then there is the being rude for being rude's sake.
Mm-hmm.
There's a difference between being ornery and being direct.
Yeah.
One of the things we do before we do our
Memorial Day.
Memorial Day.
Ah, yes.
Memorial Day. We collect money at some of the stores here.
Yeah.
And I always thought, God bless you. And you'd be surprised how many people say, and you too.
Mm-hmm. And they mean it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not like a smug, like, and you too.
And I talked about the flowers.
Poppies.
The poppies.
Yeah.
I said, that's all there for those guys. We give out poppies and that kind of stuff. But there's a lot of people that do like those things, and they don't like. I think there was a point in time not that long ago that people would look at you like, "Are you nuts? God bless you." Yeah. I think it's changing.
I do see it a little bit of progression
Yeah.
towards it. People not being so upset, at least not verbally saying, "Well, don't say that to me." Right. They at least are understanding now that you're entitled to be polite with it. And they can recognize that, okay, you believe that. I appreciate the good wish you're sending towards me. If that's what they don't believe, they don't believe in God. That's their freedom to not believe in them. That's 100% their choice. Right. I don't force anything on anybody.
Well, if you do it in the right way, usually they're going to be receptive. Most of them. Yeah. Almost embarrassed if they don't. Mm-hmm. Because you're being so nice to them.
Yeah.
And that's what Christians should be doing.
Exactly. I 100% would agree with that. Not called to be judgmental.
Right. But you're giving them good information. And you know what? Eternity is a long time.
It is.
So, I have some good information about that eternity.
You're a sweet woman. She knocked on that door with that vacuum pump. So then I'm following her around because she had to water the plants, the flowers. The plant.
You guys mentioned you worked on a project together after that. You mentioned bats.
The bats.
Oh yeah. I was doing flight energetics with bats, and I lured her into that part instead of she was washing test tubes.
Oh jeez.
Yeah.
And she's doing test tubes, and I kissed her.
Yeah.
And I said, "I'm sorry, I shouldn't." And she said, "No, nothing to be sorry about."
He was a sweetheart. He still is a sweetheart, but that wasn't the first meeting, Rob. That was a few days later in the lab. But he was just very...
A few days? You snuck a kiss in after a few days?
Yes. So, yeah. But it was, we worked every day together.
Yeah.
Because it
was... I ordered in the lab there, yes.
It was between years.
Because I wasn't going to follow around watering flowers.
He needed to get a little bit of work done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, we had, it was amazing what we found.
It was amazing. That was some
stuff.
That
could put more oxygen in his muscles than placenta to a fetus, which is the top of the chart.
Right.
Yeah, nothing does as well as
Yeah.
Well, what was that research for?
Birds are highly modified flight.
Right.
They have air sacs that they have oxygen going across their muscles constantly.
Okay.
Well, how do we breathe? Not as efficient as bird inspiration and expiration. And so we were looking at, what were their limits, and we had bats that like that one bat. I built it was devised and built an apparatus that could do a millionth of a liter, because we had a bat that only weighed 15 grams. So if we tried to take blood from it, we'd kill it.
Right.
Well, with my apparatus, we could get the blood, and that bat turned out to be the one that had the ability to send more blood to its muscles than placenta to a fetus.
Was it because the blood was
so we
thinner or
wouldn't have
something?
found that without what I did with that apparatus that I built.
That's awesome.
Yeah, my mentor came to our house, and he was on his motorcycle, and he's going to pick up another guy. He was retired at that point, and he said, "You were my favorite graduate student. I always gave you the impossible, and you always did." But yeah, I love that guy, Steve Thomas.
Steve. He lives up in Massachusetts now.
Ah.
Yeah.
He learned how to do post and beam framing. We have
It's quite the change.
well, he was a professor, so we had a loft. We built a loft with a 38-foot high ceiling
Peak.
and that's where I did my work with grading papers or doing tests or whatever. And but he came in and he looked at me. Next thing I know, I hear from him the next time. He says, "I'm doing post and beam this here," and he did a post and beam addition on his house. He loved it so much.
Yeah,
All right.
that's cool.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
Yeah.
But he was an amazing guy. But he the things that I did, he was amazed with. So
Yeah. Well, sounds like you did a lot over there too. I mean, you got your very extensive and historical military past, but you also sounds like you did a couple things in your civilian life too.
yeah,
Just a couple.
Just a couple.
So,
It's been fun.
well, you said you were involved in the bat thing too, right?
I was.
What did you do?
I blew the bats in the wind tunnel.
had to exercise.
And yes, in order to exercise them. Also, they had to learn how to fly in a wind tunnel so that we could put a mask over them that had probes in it so that we could measure their respirations.
Okay.
But you take them in first, no mask, no probes, just get them comfortable in there. And so you would go in there with them one at a time with the big guys because their wingspan was about a meter.
Which is bigness.
Yeah.
I had to go out to the airport and look like them. They were like, "Ooh, bats!"
And so that was my job, to feed them and to fly them. They were fruit bats, so I would go down there twice a day and feed them. And it was just cantaloupe and grapes and bananas and apples and anything that we could get from actually the strip district.
Oh.
So, yeah, when they were close to not being rotten, but close to not being able to be sold,
Right.
they would give them to us.
Right at the end of their shelf life.
That's it, exactly. And so we would use that to feed our bats.
Okay.
And they were tropist bats. That was their
And there's
species.
a big thing. You have to get the wind tunnel up to speed.
Yeah.
Well, birds or any kind of flying animal don't start with 35-mile-an-hour wind.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that you had to repeatedly do that to where they got the hang of flying against that wind. And so it was a lot of work.
Pull your hair back, put your blistex on, get in the tunnel.
Well, the tunnel was
So
fine.
you said they made some mess.
They did. Sometimes they would get anxious, because this is unfamiliar to them.
Mm-hmm.
And so they would tinkle in the wind and it would come back at you. So you had to be fast. You had to be able to duck. And yeah.
How many times did you not duck out of the way in time?
There's a couple times. And it was just
Yes.
but you know what? It wasn't their fault. It was their reaction to something unfamiliar. Taught me patience. It taught me patience.
Mm-hmm.
It really did. And I carried that with me into nursing because you know what? This person's not laying in this bed because they want to. This patient's laying in his bed because they need to be taken care of. On the other hand, the bats need to learn this, how to fly, so that we can get information from them. So, all around it,
and then we had to
made for a good thing.
Yeah.
I had to do micromanometric techniques for that too.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to explain that to me. I don't know what that means.
Well, there was an apparatus that had mercury in it, and you put the blood in there and seal it. And then when you open that, the mercury drops and it pulls the oxygen out of the blood because it's making a vacuum when it does that.
Okay.
And so then I get to measure how much oxygen they had in their blood.
Yeah.
Which was critical to our
So your thing that you developed was the mercury dropped in it.
That was another part of that picture.
Okay.
Yeah, there was a lot to do with it. That's what he said. He said every time I gave you something to do it, you always did it.
Yeah.
They did the technical work. I did the carrying of the bat. Yeah, which I loved.
You did the science work. You did the grunt work.
I did, but I loved those bats. And then when the experiments were over, we donated them to the Pittsburgh Zoo. And so I was able to go and visit Spike and Mama and Rooster and all of them. And I named them all.
You named all the bats.
Yeah, and the baby was Mickey Bat. Mama ended up expecting, and she delivered a little baby bat, which, I mean, that doesn't normally happen in captivity. So we were
you didn't tell that story right.
Oh.
She came up to my lab and she said, "Mama, there's something wrong with Mom." She dragged me down to the basement, and I looked at the bat. I said, "She had a baby."
She had a baby. But at the point,
it was covered with blood. Yeah.
So, but
she had a baby.
But it was so tiny compared to Mama. And then, but the other bats were, I don't know if she made them stay away because she had just delivered or what, but she kept that baby so close to her, and wrapped her wings around them. Like, you couldn't even see the bat most of the time. Like, and that baby I named him Mickey because we didn't know if it was a boy or a girl. So
one of the guys in the lab wanted to call him Mickey Mantle.
No, he wanted to call him Louisville Slugger.
Louisville Slugger.
No. We are not calling the bat that. So I figured Michael, if it's a boy, Michelle, if it's a girl, we're good. So, yeah.
Did you guys ever figure out who the dad bat was?
No, we didn't. I suspect it was Rooster, but I'm not positive about that.
Go figure, it's the one named Rooster.
Rooster, yeah. He was our original bat of that kind. So I think I think Mama was the queen of the roost of that group,
right?
But I think he was the big cheese male.
Now, do you have any comparison between the Vietnam War itself and then after with like the Cold War era?
So I didn't get to see any of that.
No experience back here at the home side of dealing with things with the.
Oh, you mean?
Yeah, the way it was here in the U.S. afterwards, like being in the war in Vietnam versus being civilian side for the Cold War.
I got through all the medical issues that I had. I was in the hospital. I was in
Japan.
And I was in
Hawaii.
Yeah, and then I was in stateside military base, and then they got me to Valley Forge Fund. I was beat up.
Yeah.
So
you spent a good chunk of time after you got back.
Yeah.
In and out of hospitals and bouncing around.
Yeah, I had a lot of it.
Because he was actually in country for 4 months and 8 days before he got hit. So he finished out the rest of his term, his deployment.
Yeah.
Well,
in hospitals.
Yeah.
So, and it took a couple of years.
Yeah.
For him to complete
they
that.
had to get everything fixed.
The best they could.
Yeah, a monkey ran somewhere.
And then when he came home, he kind of figured what the idea was about Vietnam. And he took his uniform and put it at the curbside.
No.
Because it wasn't popular to be a Vietnam veteran. So, yeah. So
that was actually going to be my next question for you, was what it was like to return home. Because a lot of the guys, especially from Vietnam, when they came home, it was not a warm welcome at all.
Right, but my case, because of all the medical issues, I was in the ambulance the whole time, anywhere I went.
Yeah.
And then they took me to Valley Forge Hospital. Oh,
yeah.
I didn't have to deal with that.
Yeah, he didn't get off the plane like some of them did and have people yelling bad things at them or spitting on them, whatever, to calling them baby killers.
That term hasn't changed. There were still people doing that for some of the guys coming back from the Middle East too. So
I'm sure.
Yeah,
I'm sure. So he didn't have that experience.
I'm pretty bold.
Very different.
Really. I mean, I've had friends like Warren. He turned around and said, "You're my best friend."
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean.
But then you have other friends who did have that experience.
Oh yeah.
And they remember it vividly. And you know what? And they're in their 70s now. Mm-hmm. And that happened when they were in their 20s, early 20s. And they still remember being called names. And
I didn't get spit on or anything because I was in an ambulance.
Right.
The whole time. From one to another to get to Valley Forge.
But I think a lot of times it helps for them to talk about it.
Yeah.
You know, I think that is...
And I've done that freely the whole time.
Oh, he has, definitely, from the get-go. You know, one of the first time that we actually went on a date, we were two students at Duquesne University, and down the street from Duquesne was a theater, and it was... the deer hunter was popular at that time. But we didn't know anything about the deer hunter because all you saw on the posters was
a rifle and there's a deer on the hill.
And there's a deer on the hill. And we're like, it's good. Well, we get to the part where they're playing Russian roulette. If you saw that.
Oh, no. Even before that, I said they're going
to Vietnam. Like it's the wedding scene. And he says they're going to Vietnam. And then we get to the...
She thought of me.
Yeah. And we get to the Russian roulette part. And I'm like, okay, we had to leave. Yeah, I couldn't take any more, because the man sitting next to me, and you have to remember it was 1978. He had gotten hit just 10 years before 1968, and so all those, I'm like, we got to leave. And so we left. But that was our first date. We went we went to a movie, and it was The Deer Hunter.
Oh, a deer and a rifle, yeah.
But we didn't know,
Yeah.
So
I had no clue. Yeah.
I've seen some lovely movies since then, but I've never sat through The Deer Hunter. I never did ever again. And I didn't sit through it the first time, but I'm not going to watch it. But I did see Saving Private Ryan, and what were some of the other ones? I mean,
there's Hacksaw Ridge, there's Saving Private Ryan, there's a lot of movies.
There's a lot.
Yeah.
But that first one was because, and again, in that one...
She was in the jujubes.
I was down on the floor with the popcorn and the jujubes. But that man had PTSD because for years, he didn't even realize that the war was over. When you... And that was just me poking my head up every once in a while. Seeing what this movie was
at one point, I said,
we gotta go.
Let's get out of here.
We gotta go. Yeah.
I had no clue what the movie was about.
And we're just like, okay.
Well, I went from Vietnam to
school. You started school.
We weren't watching videos of movies in Vietnam.
No, it was.
It's not like you had a Roku in your barracks room or something like that.
I think it was probably more like what was that? Forrest Gump.
Yeah.
Welcome to Vietnam.
Yeah. Your 2 weeks of training, and then next week you're in country.
Well, we had more than that.
A couple more.
Yeah, we had.
I'm being exaggerative, but
yeah.
Compared to today's training, which is 11, 12, 13 weeks long.
Wow.
And for the basic and then NAIT, or you got OSUIT, which is one station unit training.
Polk was all the training.
Yeah.
Oh my God, they had snakes in the pits. And, they were live snakes.
You're looking like Indiana Jones in that.
And
snakes. Why did it have to be snakes?
In that area, you're walking along on the compass course, you're kind of at night, pitch black, and all of a sudden you're up to your nose in water. It was not a good experience.
Yeah, but that could have happened in Vietnam, right?
Oh, yeah, I know.
It's probably a good training ground for Vietnam, Indiana.
Yeah.
The time I was there, it was constant combat. we didn't have any breaks that I can think of.
Well, you made a comment earlier that I want to clarify, because even I'm not familiar with the difference, obviously, since I wasn't there. But you said something about there's a difference between Charlie and the NVA. So not Charlie, but the NVA.
Yeah.
Yeah. So is there a difference between the two?
Well, yeah. I mean, the NVAs were crackerjacks. Yeah, they were good fighters. I mean, we had our hands full. The other, I don't know.
Charlie,
I mean, they were running around pajamas, and it was a whole different thing.
So that was more of the insurgent forces, was Charlie.
Right.
Versus the established Northern Vietnamese army.
And, well, yeah.
Because people nowadays use that term interchangeably, like Charlie was the NVA.
Yeah.
And they're talking history. So there is a distinct difference between the two of them.
Oh, yeah. It's just people that were running around in pajamas. But they used the Cu Chi's tunnels. Mm-hmm. They came down the Ho Chi Minh Trail. And then Cu Chi has buku tunnels everywhere. And so they got all past us to that place where we were on the runway trip, and all of a sudden we're getting hit like crazy and running out of ammo, and they had to drop it. And we had no clue what was going on there. But we found out the next day. That's when I got hit. Yeah, because they were dug in the next day, totally dug in. And when we pulled out, all hell broke. Those RPGs were just everywhere. I never saw so many RPG. Todd, you know Todd Deepest, that Veterans Breakfast. Warren took me, and he was the whole Veterans Breakfast that day. And he said, let's go Saturday too. So I went Saturday too, and I'm sitting in the room, and all of a sudden I look up, and there's a picture of me standing in front of my track on the wall, and he's coming at me with a microphone.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah. And I had no clue what their format was. And when I got to the point where we were overrun, and so many people were getting killed, and I just wow. I started sobbing. I was sobbing. And I healed so much that one day. It was amazing. He's amazing. He does these veterans breakfasts, and we have one coming.
We do in April at Christchurch.
But there's one in the
March 29th, which is Vietnam Veterans Day. Heinz History Center.
Heinz History Center.
No, that's like the one you guys were talking about, where they did the Vietnam one before.
Well, that was one of their shows that they put on a couple years ago. Okay. And it took up the whole second or third floor of the Heinz History Center. And you just went from room to room and learned about Vietnam. The Veterans Breakfast Club on Vietnam Veterans Day has a ceremony for Vietnam veterans. Everybody's invited. It's from 2 to 4 in the afternoon. There's people. They have guest speakers, and
Todd's Todd's
the MC.
Okay.
And
but I heal.
Anybody is invited to go to that on March 29th.
Okay.
You just have to register with VBC, Veterans Breakfast Club.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
I'll put that in for everybody that's watching too.
Todd's not a veteran.
No,
but he loves veterans.
Yeah.
Oh, we might win it.
He's used me a ton.
Yeah. But their motto for VBC is, every veteran has a story. What is yours?
I like that.
And that's how he's, that is their, it's not their logo, but it's their motto.
Yeah. He pulls people out. He's really, really, he was a history teacher.
Yeah.
And it just got
sounds like him and I would get along.
Yeah.
And he's an amazing guy. If you end up going, I'll take you over. He's
a great guy. He's a very good guy.
I'll see if I can make it down
and
to that.
Ben Wright, who is a minister in this life, but was in Vietnam. And he was telling Coach about it.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was one of the ones with the helicopter in the end when they were getting out of there and back end was touching on the thing, and he made a bunch of trips to get as many of the people as he could out of there.
So he's an interesting man to speak with also. Yeah. Yeah. Just look up VBC, Rob. It'll be all on there, and how to get the newsletter from them via your email every week. And
things with the Veterans Breakfast Clubs are so healing. I don't know what you've been through when in the way of combat. And
nothing. No official combat now.
No combat.
Well, then you're worthless. No,
yes, the right people. I am.
You heard what I said.
Yeah,
everybody plays a role in that.
Yeah,
and you should never feel bad about that. But Todd's amazing. He's an amazing man.
And to get people to talk about their experiences, I think, is healing.
Oh, and I healed that day so much.
And that's amazing. A lot of what you're doing too. I mean, you're getting information because you have a curiosity for it.
Well, it's also so my thing is also to record the history for other people to hear and all that, but it's also the opportunity for the people to get to tell their individual stories.
That's it. Sure. But with those individual stories, there's healing going on all the time. It's a
4 months, 8 days. That's my combat.
That's 4 months and 8 days more than I've seen.
Well, yeah. But again, there was a plan. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'm glad you came back.
Warren was a motorcycle.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
His house and his wife would say he went to
Ohio.
Ohio on his motorcycle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He always had that wanderlust. Yeah.
He went to a gas station and put it down. He had a big Harley. And he couldn't get it back up, and then he knew he had to.
But he was already in his 90s by that point.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
I have to go get a new bike. I laid mine down.
Oh.
Yeah.
On the ground?
When you're laying
couldn't
down,
get it back up?
It's not good for them.
Oh.
Right here, I got damage in these 2 fingers. Also, I got a gash in my side from an accident that I got. He laid it down at about 50 miles an hour.
Oh, dear.
Oh.
Yeah.
I'm honestly lucky because I wasn't wearing a helmet at the time.
My gosh. Yeah.
Very lucky.
Just say that's not a smart thing.
No, you're 100%. When I get a bike again, because I'm not going to be one of those people that wrecks a bike and is scared to get back on.
Yeah.
I just haven't had the monetary ability to go get another one. They're expensive.
They are.
So, when I get the chance to again, I'm 110% wearing a helmet.
Yes.
I'm glad I was wearing the clothing that I was wearing when it happened, because I would have been a lot more tore up than I am if it wasn't for that. The reason why my hand and my side got it the most is because my hand I wasn't wearing gloves.
Oh.
Yeah.
And my side, the jacket that I had worn rode up because I had slid.
Yeah.
So, but everything else, I had my jeans.
Well, he's lucky his was on a gas station and he just
fell over.
Yeah.
But he couldn't get it back up.
But he couldn't get it back up. And so then he realized he had to give up riding his bike, and that made him sad.
But that man got our nonprofit going. He went out on his motorcycle. Some guy he put things on telephone poles.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this guy was in the process of closing his business down. He was looking for places to use, like,
donate,
because he gets tax benefits.
Right. He
so
leases up a property to somebody.
He went back to see him. Warren went back to see him because he gave us $1,000. And the guy was there, and then he said, no, I'm trying to close my business down. He ended up completing a $100,000 donation to us, which really got us going.
Yeah.
With the vets.
Yeah.
Warren's responsible for that.
For the initial push,
I love that man.
Yeah.
He's an amazing
Absolutely.
man.
That's a huge help from him.
$100,000,
That is not peanuts.
No, and it helped a lot of veterans. It did. So, yeah.
Well, and then they can help out brothers and sisters. Like that's the main goal.
Yeah.
Because I used to stop at his house, and I said, "It's Warren home." She said, "No, he went to Sandusky on the bike." This guy's going close to 100
Yes, exactly. Any excuse to go ride his bike.
Mm-hmm. Heinz I liked a lot because the Dr. Waters I had, he was amazing. Mm-hmm. And he used to help me with the nonprofit. He had brochures there, and when he had people in, he passed them out. Awesome. We got a lot of people from him doing that. But he really wanted to go to hospice. I, at one point, was thinking about doing that too. Probably with my
But the pandemic happened, and
right.
They closed it down.
Yeah.
I'm not going to hospice. I'm telling you right now, I'm not going to hospice. If I get to the point where I can't take care of myself at that level, I want somebody to expedite my time.
This was for him to volunteer. He wanted to go and spend time with the people because honestly, two veterans, they don't have anybody to spend time with them. So, so we didn't want veterans to be alone.
No,
And then the pandemic hit, and it was like, no entrance. Nobody gets past this door. It was like, so. Yeah.
And then we lost a lot of them during that time frame, too. Even though they're supposedly quarantined and safe, they weren't.
No.
Well, I'll keep talking to you guys for all day, but I'm going to wrap this up with one last thing from both of you.
There's always one last thing.
Yeah. Well, it's the last topic that we're going to stop. However long it takes is how long it takes. There's no rush on it. Funny stories. So anything you can remember from your past, it's like one of those look back and it makes you laugh every time you think about it, like a little quirky story kind of thing.
I didn't know what about it.
Yeah.
I got on, I'm the lead track, and there's like 25 tracks behind me. And this buffalo got under just as I was getting onto it. And I looked in my rearview mirror, and he's bouncing back and forth off the side of my track and the side of the bridge.
Playing ping pong with Barbara.
And he was fine. And then he was fine.
Then I looked back, and he took off running. Didn't even faze him. Didn't even face him. I felt bad, but there's no way I could stop with all those tracks behind me, and they're all going full speed.
Yeah, no. That would have been a bad move.
That would have been bad. I may be dumb, but I'm not stupid.
I don't think you're dumb or stupid, but yeah. Any major regrets?
I love this country. I love this country dearly. I knew that I knew what I was doing. I knew that track, and so I think I saved people. I know I saved people at points. So, God had reasons.
He does.
Yeah.
I'm thankful.
He made me very strong.
It did.
He made me very strong.
I will be honest with you. I don't think I could have done what you did in your situation.
No.
I mean, I would have sat there, but I don't know that I'd be alive. I don't know that I'd be strong enough to pull through like you did. So, I'm glad you did.
Yeah, me too. Because I got to meet this little flower.
And you just don't know until you're put into that position. What will, because people have asked me that same thing. Like, well, what would you have done? Well, I don't know because I haven't been there.
Yeah, it's that's how you get there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And my gung-ho platoon leader, I was always first. He knew I was the best driver. And he got us into some jams. I got us out. Yeah. I'd love to have driven that other one.
The new one?
Yeah.
Have you had a chance to drive one yet?
No, not the new one. Yeah.
I wonder if we can make that happen.
It was pretty cool. It'd be a lot different with one arm. You didn't get a chance to read that yet.
I read over what was on the wall, but
yeah. I'm going to have this. I want to show Bob pictures on the wall. That is
I think you may have, sweetheart.
Huh?
I think you may have. Well, slide it.
No, I don't think he's seen it. I told him in the last meeting, I said, one of these days I'm going to pull you over there and talk about that picture hanging out there.
Yeah.
Well, the guy that Huh?
25th Infantry Regiment or Division.
Yeah.
Next time I talk to you, I'm going to ask you about the electric raspberry.
I call it the electric strawberry. I do.
25th Infantry.
Yeah.
I know a little bit of their history.
It's supposed to be a tropical leaf, but I tell you what, it is not.
Nope. Correct me if I'm wrong, but they even went by like tropical and some sort of fruit or something like that. The electric raspberries or something.
Yeah, I call it the electric strawberry.
Yeah, there's a lot of people.
But
Ray kicked ass though.
I heard some crazy stories about those guys.
Yeah, and it goes all the way back to 1812. So
what's weird is I was in Killeen, Texas. It was an Army, Fort Hood and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom said, let's go to church. And I went to church, and Reverend Wolf was there. And wow, I accepted Christ, and he had me cutting grass. And and I was a hell raiser. Our Friday nights get beer and run around finding GIs getting fights with.
Mm-hmm.
I loved that.
Texas mentality.
Yeah.
Nah, not at all.
No, I guess just bored. What are you going to do in Killeen, Texas?
He was a Killeen Kangaroo. He played on the football team.
Yeah.
A Killeen Kangaroo. Like, oh my gosh.
It's just another one of those things, though, that I've noticed from history, too. All the badasses are either blind and lie to get their way into the military or come from Texas.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're just bred different down there, I guess. Well, I want to thank you both for coming into the show. We're going to end the show now. But thank you guys for your stories.
Mm-hmm. It was fun.
Bringing back things that kind of made you a little teary.
That's okay, though. You know what? There's nothing wrong with that.
No, I mean.
Go ahead.
Oh, I thought you was going to give me one. You go feed me.
Here, Brian's.
Where are you going now?
It turned out pretty good.
Mm-hmm. I heard this. He's right there.
Mm-hmm.